The rain hammered against the cracked windows of Seraphine Vale's apartment, a relentless tapping that felt less like weather and more like a warning. It was past midnight, the hour when the city slept, but her mind woke, pacing restless circles inside her skull. She sat alone at her desk, the glow of her monitor carving a pale outline of her face in the darkness. The online world had become her refuge, an endless maze of neon-lit forums, whispering chats, and strangers who felt safer than the people she knew in daylight. That night, as thunder rolled over the rooftops like a slow exhale, a new notification blinked at the corner of her screen. A message. From someone she'd never seen. Lucien Gray. There was no greeting, no polite introduction, only a single sentence that froze the breath in her chest. "I've seen the shadows behind your smile. They match mine." It was unsettling, precise, as if he had been studying her from a place just beyond the visible edges of her life. Seraphine hesitated, fingers hovering above the keyboard, the apartment suddenly too quiet. Most strangers started with, "Hi," sometimes a compliment, sometimes a lie. But this felt different. Darker. Intentional. She answered anyway. She always answered. Maybe she was lonely. Maybe she was reckless. Or maybe she was already the kind of girl danger finds easily. "You don't know me," she typed, hoping the distance in her words would push him away. Instead, his reply came instantly, like he had been waiting for the moment her fingers touched the keys. "Not yet. But I know the darkness you hide. And I'm not afraid of it." A shiver rolled down her spine. No one spoke to her like that, like he wasn't flirting, wasn't performing, wasn't pretending. Lucien felt like someone who saw the cracks in her without needing to be shown. And the most terrifying part was that she didn't look away. For the first time in months, she leaned closer to the screen. What began with that single message stretched into nights that bled into mornings. Their conversations became addictive, an echo chamber of secrets and wounds. Seraphine found herself confessing things she had locked away for years, the loneliness, the nightmares, the childhood ghosts she thought she'd buried. Lucien absorbed it all, his responses sharp, poetic, sometimes tender, sometimes unsettlingly possessive. He told her he loved her before they ever met. The warning signs were there, blinking red in her peripheral vision, but she mistook the fever in her chest for affection. The night they finally agreed to meet, she felt a pressure behind her ribs, like her heart was trying to claw its way out. He chose the place, an abandoned railway tunnel on the outskirts of the city, a place swallowed by darkness, where graffiti dripped like wounded colors and the echoes of old trains whispered through the concrete. She stepped into the cold, damp air, her footsteps hesitant, her breath visible. And then she saw him. Tall. Still. Watching. His eyes gleamed with an intensity that felt almost electric. He smiled softly, touching her cheek with a gentleness that contradicted everything around them. But beneath that softness was something else, something sharp and waiting. Seraphine didn't know it yet, but the moment she stepped into that tunnel, she had stepped into Lucien's world. A world where love had edges sharp enough to cut. A world where obsession felt like devotion until it was too late to run. The tunnel meeting should have ended after a few minutes, a brief exchange, a moment of curiosity satisfied. But Seraphine stayed longer than she meant to, drawn into the gravity of Lucien's presence. He had a way of listening that made silence feel like a confession. The few streetlights outside flickered through the cracked ceiling, casting stripes of gold and shadow across his face. He looked carved from the night itself, beautiful, dangerous, impossible to read. When he spoke, his voice was too calm, too certain, like a man who had never second-guessed a single decision in his life. He asked her questions no one else dared to ask. Where she went when her thoughts got dark. What she feared when she closed her eyes. Why she trusted strangers more than people she loved. She told him too much. She knew she did. But Lucien handled her truths with a strange sort of reverence, as if every flaw she revealed was a thread he could wrap around his fingers. And he wrapped them tightly. After midnight, she finally forced herself to leave. Lucien walked her to the exit of the tunnel, stopping just before the moonlight touched him. "Don't disappear," he said softly. It wasn't a request. It was a warning disguised as affection. His eyes locked onto hers, too steady, too knowing. When she tried to speak, he raised a finger to her lips, silencing her. "I'll see you soon." The promise lingered in the air, colder than the night breeze. Over the next week, Lucien became impossible to escape. He messaged her before sunrise, during classes, while she worked, while she walked home. His words were carved with need, beautiful and suffocating at the same time. "I want to know every hour you live. Don't vanish between messages. Your silence feels like betrayal." At first, she told herself he was just intense, maybe a bit obsessive, maybe lonely. But the pattern tightened like rope. Then came the first red flag she couldn't ignore. She noticed someone had accessed her private photo folders, files stored offline, on a drive she rarely touched. Nothing was deleted, nothing changed, but she felt the violation like fingerprints on her skin. When she confronted Lucien in a half-joking message, he responded instantly, "You should secure the things you treasure. Not everyone has good intentions." It didn't answer her question. It raised 10 more. The next night, she felt eyes on her. Not in the imagination sense. Real eyes. Watching from across the street as she walked home. A figure under a street lamp, unmoving, silent. When she blinked, he was gone, but the dread stayed, coiled in her stomach like smoke. Her phone began buzzing with unknown numbers. Her location tags glitched. Her old messages rearranged themselves without her touching them. Lucien was the only constant presence in her digital world, always appearing exactly when she felt most vulnerable. She tried pulling away slowly, spacing out replies. But the less she spoke, the more intense he became. His messages shifted from devotion to desperation, desperation to threat. "If you disappear from me, Seraphine," he wrote one night, "the world will break trying to hide you." She didn't sleep that night. She couldn't. Somewhere in the dark, she felt the sense of being hunted by someone who believed he was in love. Seraphine did everything she could to disappear gently, hoping Lucien would drift out of her life the same way he drifted in, quiet as a shadow, leaving no trace behind. She blocked him, changed passwords, wiped her devices, even replaced her phone. For a brief moment, she believed she had reclaimed her life. The silence felt unnatural at first, like holding your breath underwater. But after 2 days, it felt like oxygen returning to her lungs. She walked lighter. She slept deeper. She started believing she had escaped whatever darkness she had stepped into the night she met him in that tunnel. The illusion shattered on the 3rd night. She woke to the soft buzz of her new phone vibrating on her pillow. No one had the number, not her friends, not her family. With trembling fingers, she unlocked the screen. One message waited for her. No name. No profile picture. Just a number. And the words she feared more than anything: "You look beautiful when you sleep." Her heart clamped in her chest. She shot up in bed, staring into the corners of her room as if expecting someone to emerge from the shadows. Every window looked wrong. Every curtain, every dark spot on the wall. She ran to the balcony and locked it. Closed the blinds. Pressed her back to the door, forcing her breath to slow. But fear doesn't soften, it spreads. Within minutes, another message arrived. "You shouldn't have left me." She deleted it with shaking hands, but a third arrived before she could put the phone down. "Love doesn't end because you're afraid." That was the night Seraphine went to the police. She sat in a cold metal interview room while two officers asked her the same questions in different tones. Did she have proof? Had she ever met him physically? Had he ever hurt her? She wanted to scream that obsession itself is violence, but all she managed was a whisper. They took notes. They nodded. They offered nothing real. "We'll look into it," they said. "Don't panic," they said. She walked out of the station with a hollow feeling in her chest. Lucien always seemed one step ahead. She knew a report wouldn't stop him. She didn't need a badge to tell her she was being hunted by someone who believed he owned her. That night, she packed a small bag and went to stay in a friend's apartment, an address she had never shared online, never posted, never mentioned. The building was old but safe, tucked behind a row of shops. She curled up on the couch, letting exhaustion drag her toward sleep. Hours passed. The world outside quieted. At 3:14 a.m., a soft knock broke the silence. Her breath froze. Another knock followed, gentle, slow, deliberate. Her friend stirred in the other room, confused and half asleep, but Seraphine already knew. She felt it in her bones before she even approached the peephole. With her heartbeat throbbing in her ears, she looked. Lucien stood on the other side of the door. His expression wasn't rage. It wasn't madness. It was devotion, twisted, unwavering, terrifying. He lifted his hand and pressed his palm against the wood, as if feeling her heartbeat through the barrier. His voice was muffled but unmistakably calm. "I told you," he whispered. "I will always find you." And she understood something in that moment. This wasn't love anymore. It was a promise of destruction.